All right.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the October 18th Planning Board meeting. Please take note of the exits around the room in case of mishap, and now join me as we salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for a minor subdivision entitled Rogers and McKenzie. May I get a motion to open the public hearing? Here.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Baird, you want to come up? So as a reminder, this is a subdivision that is basically correcting some encroachment of buildings from one parcel to another. Originally, they were both owned by the same party. They're being separated or redone now so that there's, to sell the second empty lot, there won't be any encroachments on it, et cetera.
That is correct.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Anything from the consultants? Yes, Ms. Polidoro? We have a resolution prepared.
We have a resolution prepared, and there are a number of conditions that need to be satisfied before the plat can be signed. The applicant has also requested waivers from the provision of certain information, such as the stream across the back lot, the developable area of the back lot. And so I've included those waivers unless you object.
One of the reasons why I thought it was prudent to go ahead and accept the waiver request was because when the lot under question comes back in for future development, we will be looking at all the topographic information, et cetera. In addition, I personally drove by the lot. It looks like there's lots of buildable area and through there. There is a stream in the far left corner, I'll call it, or the northeast corner, I guess that would be. And our code does not allow development within 100 feet of the midsection of the stream, so there would be certain encumbered areas out of the site that couldn't be developed, but otherwise it looks like it could fit a few houses on there, or it could be a nice big lot for somebody. So thank you, Ms. Polidoro. Any comments from the board? Let me start to my left. Mr. Murphy?
Just that there's a lot of conditions versus
I know.
something that doesn't have any conditions.
Ms. Weiser?
I have no comment.
Mr. Pickett?
No comment.
Ms. Dexter?
Nope, nothing.
Mr. Oliver?
No comments.
And Ms. DiNapoli?
No comment.
Would anyone from the public like to speak about this application? There being none, we get a motion to close the public hearing.
So move. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
So this resolution does have a lot of conditions to it. We're going to both accept for sketch, by the way, and do conditional final plat. And as a reminder to everyone on the board, with minor subdivisions, there is no intermediate. You go directly from sketch to final. But one of the points to be made, just for anyone in the audience, is that while the conditions are many, some of them are actually pretty minor. The surveyor was sending back informally some information to us, but never formally. I know that the well, which is one of the conditions, has already been located. So I think these can actually, most of them, be handled fairly easily. And today we have the issue of there's a driveway that accesses the parcel to the north, and it appears as though there's an easement, but the language of the easement is a little iffy because it refers to, I think it was Belvedere Road, and we can't find an official Belvedere Road on an official map, subdivision map, filed anything. So we're going to keep in the condition that says that we're not approving anything there. That way it can be cleaned up legally later on at whenever there's a sale or whenever else you have the time to.
That's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. Who has this resolution?
That'd be me.
Thank you, Shannon.
Resolution number 2017-38A. Whereas, now therefore be resolved that the planning board hereby classifies subdivision plat as a minor subdivision pursuant to section 96-12B2 of the code and accepts the sketch plan in accordance with the provisions of section 96-12C of the code. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby waives the following submission requirements: 96-18A2, 6, 96-18B1, 96-18C, 96-19A2, and 96-19A7. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby approves the subdivision plat and authorizes the chair or other authorized designee to affix his or her signature to the subdivision plat after the compliance by the applicant with the following conditions. Number 1, payment of all fees and escrow. Number 2, revision of the subdivision plat to include the correct planning board approval block and the owner's signature block, which can be obtained from the planning board secretary. Number 3, revision of the subdivision plat to identify the lots with numbers or letters. Number 4, revision of the subdivision plat to identify all property owners that adjoin the project site, including those on the west side of the property. Number 5, revision of the subdivision plat to include the zoning district table acceptable to the zoning administrator, which includes the following information. A, average density calculations. B, density allocation for each lot. C, actual existing and proposed values for the impervious coverage. D, actual existing and proposed value for all setbacks. E, a note indicating that the front yard setback for the one-story house is pre-existing condition. And F, district information for library and fire. Number 6, revision for the subdivision plat to include a graphic scale. Number 7, revision of the subdivision plat to depict any well locations on the developed lot. Number 8, revision of the subdivision plat to include notations of revisions. And number 9, revision of the subdivision plat to contain the following note. There is an existing gravel driveway on lot blank serving the property now or formerly by Nemenrow. The planning board takes no position on the legality or location of the drive as part of this subdivision approval. Number 10, submission of a letter from the licensed land surveyor verifying the acreage of the lots and providing an explanation to the extent possible for large discrepancy with county tax records as shown on Dutchess County parcel assets. Number 11, revision of the subdivision plat to include the size of the lots in square feet as well as in acres. Number 12, revision of the subdivision plat to include the date of the field survey conducted by the licensed land surveyor. Number 13, revision of the subdivision plat to include the distance from the property line to the porch on the developed lot. Number 14, inclusion of the phase final plat in the title block, and that's the last.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Counselor, it was a pleasure doing work with you. Welcome you back to town anytime.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'd like to thank planning board members here and to compliment the efficiency and responsiveness of your professionals and your planning board secretary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and best of luck to your client, Ms. McKenzie, as she goes forth to sell the property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The next item on the agenda, that would be the last of the public hearings, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, so no more public comment tonight. Although if the audience does have questions at some point, you're free to ask after we're through discussing. I'll try to answer. Is for the Bellefield Planned Development District, St. Andrews property. The applicants are seeking approval for final development plan for a subphase, which is a hotel, as well as subdivision. And welcome back, Mr. Boudreau and team.
We're going to need a few minutes.
Yes, I know. Would you guys like to get rid of a couple of the waivers first in the meantime?
Good idea.
Good idea.
So our first waiver is, and by the way, if there's anyone in the audience waiting for the waivers tonight, we're going to try to process them right now. The first is for Hudson Valley Structures at 54 Horseshoe. Who has this file?
I do.
Just a note to point out that this site is not visible from the river or from the FDR home or from the Vanderbilt Historic Site, all of which give rise to the scenic area statewide significance is located and requiring site plan, and we do have the recommendation from the site plan, from the zoning administrator Thank you, Chris.
Okay, I'd approve.
Resolution number 2017-42, whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Ray Travis, Vice President of Hudson Valley Structures, Inc., on October 4th, 2017, for the property located at 54 Horseshoe Drive in the Town of Hyde Park. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Joseph and Alicia Molloy regarding the specific request as submitted October 4th and in the building permit application file on the same day.
Second.
So just, that should probably say, instead of Molloy, that should probably say,
Oh, right.
Hudson Valley Structures, Inc., the owner.
Yep.
That's correct.
Make it a motion to, or rather, Chris has already made the motion.
I'll
as amended.
second as amended.
Second is amended. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. The next would be for Louis Dutkowski. Applicants are seeking site plan waiver for the construction of a second story at 27 Parker Avenue. This is also not located where it can be seen from any of the historic sites or from the river. Who has this file?
I do. Sean Lewis and Mary Dutkowski, site plan waiver, October 18th, 2017. Resolution number 2017-44. Whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Sean Lewis and Mary Dutkowski on October 6, 2017 for property located at 27 Parker Avenue in the Town of Hyde Park. And whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Louis Dutkowski.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'm going to just, Mr. Pickett asked a very, I think, valuable question. When we waive site plan review, we waive all review. So his question was, is if they're adding a bedroom, which they appear to be on the second floor, how would that be caught in terms of its impact on its septic? And the answer is it'll be caught in the building department because Mr. Westermeyer will require that they have Department of Health approval for the addition of a bedroom. But it's a very good question. And normally that would be us if we were going through site plan. We would initiate that so it would already be handled before it got to the building department. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Are you guys ready to go? Would you like us to get through one more?
One more, go ahead.
Okay. The next is the ownership is 1636 LLC. It's for 33 East Elm. The applicants are seeking a site plan waiver for replacement of windows and to install a new HVAC system. This actually is located to a state historic site, meaning the golf course, Densmore, which is why. But the windows actually are already in. They were done a long time ago, and the HVAC system will not be too visible from the golf course. Who has this file?
I do.
Thank you.
Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, site plan waiver, 1636 LLC, Catherine Whitman, 33 East Elm Avenue, Statsburg, October 18, 2017, resolution number 2017-46. Whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plans has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Catherine Whitman of 1636 LLC, property owner of 33 East Elm Avenue in Satsburg, located in the Hamlet zoning district. And whereas the application is to obtain approval for the alteration, repair, and change of windows, as well as an HVAC unit to a non-conforming structure, three-family dwelling, in the historic overlay district. And whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled 1636 LLC, 33 East Elm, regarding the specific request as submitted on October 11, 2017, and in the application and building permit application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously as well. Gentlemen and lady, it's all yours.
Thank you very much for having us again. Quick update. We met with Dutchess County Water Wastewater Authority this morning at 10:30 with Bridget Barclay to we're in their water district, and so we discussed the water and the next steps for us to make and giving them a submittal. Very positive meeting. After that meeting, 2:30 this afternoon, we met with DOH. They'll also be reviewing the water and the sewer as well. The DOT status, we, as I told you last time, we received their comments and we're just about through wrapping those comments up. We should have that submittal out this week, early next week.
You guys are working really quickly, and I think that's fantastic. Great.
Yes, thank you. And then Bill Hoy and his team addressed the comments that you had, or the board had, and we received the updated elevations. Why don't you flip to them? He's not here, obviously, tonight. I did see the emails go back and forth. But the dental along the roof line, the quoins, and then the third one dealing with the 2 columns, west elevation, the gable within the gable piers. So I
If you'll
believe
flip
you.
to the, if you'll go to the west elevation, you'll
that's the
see
west
that it now matches. There you go. These were different. They now match the other side. Dental has been added all over. And Ms. Weiser, do you want to comment quickly about the coins?
I think we had initially discussed that the addition of the second coins would be on this, I can't make it work, Michael. Oh, there we go. There. Hands shaking.
It's hard.
This bump out rather than this one. I sent a note to Mr. Hoy today.
Okay.
Just drawing, if you could look over here. Just these bump outs are closer to the side rather than these ones that are there. I think we'd originally discussed that, and I think it was extremely difficult to determine which bump outs we were talking about. So I sent this to him today, and he said,
Did you note that? So he's all set?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
We just want to go over it with you. It's
Yeah,
in the tradition, where they would be located traditionally would be,
yeah,
This one
correct,
instead of
instead of that one.
that one. Got it.
Because
Same
architecture,
thing over
we know
here.
that they're.
This one
Right,
instead of that. Okay.
yeah, that they are, we know that they're decorative, but architecturally, I think if they were actually used as reinforcements, they would be in the squarish rather than the bump out that comes like that, so.
you don't notice it until you saw it in the angled.
Yeah.
Then you can really
Yeah.
see where it should be as opposed to where it is, that's all. So it's a good attention to detail and fine eye. There, that's when you can see where it should be.
Yeah.
So at any rate,
Yeah, no, I just want it right
Yeah.
there.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Yep.
makes sense.
But
Instead of there. Yep.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that I think that the building looks fantastic now, and this is going to be an asset to our community that will be lasting for decades to come. And again, I want to compliment Mr. Oliver and Ms. Weiser for, again, honing down into more specific language that enabled us to stop the round and around and around and get to something that we all like.
Do-si-do.
Yeah, the do-si-do that we all like now. So thank you. Please continue, Larry.
Okay, so last week on Wednesday, we had a technical meeting, a technical and mitigation meeting. So from that technical meeting, there's a couple things I'm going to highlight here in the layout, which we addressed. So, yeah, why don't you get to the site plan? Okay. So the first thing was this right here. We had this lining up, and so it appeared that there'll be a through drive here. We reconfigured this alignment, so now in the future for this emergency access, it won't actually go through here. It'll either swing around and go through, or swing around and go up and around, but it won't go through. So we made that change. This is the advancement to the DOT drawings here. So last time we spoke, crosswalk here and here, in addition to the one that's there. So this is all working out real nicely. And Chris, why don't you go through real quick? Okay, nothing new on that. We did discuss the lightings last week. We're all set with that, so why don't you go through? Can you, I'm going to go to, tonight we want to go through the mitigation, but before I do that, I just want to address a few more highlights on Pete's comments. We decided that we're going to have a site walk, and what we're going to do is we're going to go out there and locate the approximate clearing line for the development area first, and have a chance to go out there, see what's out there, identifying what we know is going to be saved within that area, then invite the board out there and then walk it so we can get a feel for what we need to do to meet the landscape requirement of the mitigation. The other thing we talked about, which we don't show up on our plans yet, but I'm going to walk it first to make sure I can get it in, is a connection between here and the sidewalk here. Because we know culinary students cross right here, would be a quicker way to come in instead of coming here,
Right.
swinging around.
And also, right in through here is an actual, it's one of the bus stops, the assigned bus stop for the route loop system. And so if there were any employees who at some point needed to use the bus system, they could get up through here more quickly. Because it's also a place for them to wait. There's no shelter there, but if it really gets used, then there are funds from, there's some transportation funds that could be utilized to get some shelters. Yeah, yeah. So, thank you.
Okay. That's going to be within the next couple weeks. Okay. We have all the comments addressed, Morris comments addressed, and we'll submit those when we get the final plan set together. But again, when you do have a chance to review that set, we'll have the site walk, we'll know what we need to do on landscaping, we'll get that in there. All these sidewalks in this area worked out really well. This whole thing again is coming out really nice. This right here, we're figuring out this is part of the DOT permit, so this access we're working on as well. Chris, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and pull up the Excel spreadsheet for the mitigation.
Before we get to that, just real quickly, I want to point out that at that technical meeting, I was not present for the first portion of that when Mr. Sotero and Ms. Moss and you guys discussed drainage, et cetera, but I got in late enough, it's still early enough, to know that our side was satisfied. So just to kind of give a layman's term of what was going on was, Tad was concerned that if this, say, were to be the next area developed, would this impact their stormwater systems drastically so they'd have to go back through and make changes? And as it turns out, the answer is no. You've already been figuring that out.
Right, right. Well, what we'll do is we'll address the stormwater for each project going forward, because then we know how it's going to lay out. We can manage it better. We can work with it more naturally instead of trying to force it in to put a big pond in. So
I think that's a great idea.
that's what DEC would prefer at the source.
And then also just to point out that one of the reasons why the road changed was this was meant to be, when it was here, a through road that would ultimately connect out or loop around, as Mr. Boudreau stated. But you don't really want that to be a through road with all the parking pulling in and out. So they realigned it there so that the parking would never be interrupted.
Right.
And it's also important to note that if these are all private roads, as you go forward, they're going to have to figure out a way to deal with the post office, because they will not go onto private roads to deliver mail, as far as I know. And also with that portion being subdivided, you don't want that to even be a private through road if possible. I think it'd make the ownership easier if it's kept under one HOA instead of HOA and a parcel, et cetera. So there's a reason for why, just the underlying parts of these decisions. I also want to thank Ms. Weiser and Ms. DiNapoli, who were here for all of the portions of the meeting, including the technicals. Thank you very much. Anyway, and as you'll see, the board received this by email today. I asked Mr. Boudreau, as part of stagecraft, to have it up here so that anyone from the television audience or here tonight could see what we were discussing. You all have kind of big blow-ups. So what this represents is what's in black, that it will be up on his is just in black. What's in black is what the mitigation measures were required that I had compiled way back when. And then what you see in red is kind of a summary of what was discussed. And what I'd like to do is kind of go through each item and make sure that we all agree. And then if we do agree, then we would be adopting this as kind of our secret mitigation map forward, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, I like
That sounds good?
Yeah. Now, on our spreadsheet, what we did, the red is bold.
Okay,
Okay? So it's the same thing, just bold.
thank you. Do you want to start? Or I'll start. Alternate sewer mitigation has already, going to be a condition of approval, but it's already been an agreement between the town board and the applicant, so that's kind of done. The second point, I put it in because it's part of the mitigation that it's all supposed to be tourist and oriented and high-end, but that doesn't affect this because it's a hotel. The third point was that about the sidewalk being along Route 9 or internal, you'll read, it's hard to read over there, but in essence, DOT doesn't want the sidewalk along Route 9 because of the drainage swale that runs right along the way. And they did not take enough right-of-way in order to create one on the other side. So as a consequence, we've agreed with the applicant, not agreed, we've suggested that the applicants start to think about where they want that sidewalk or sidewalk to connect ultimately from inside the development up and over to the corner of Route 9 and St. Andrews. But in the meantime, there was a rugged trail, that's how it's defined, shown in the concept plan, so they'll be putting that in that portion of the rugged trail. Have I skipped over and gone too fast for you?
No, you're doing great.
Anybody have any objections so far to kind of what the path we're suggesting moving forward?
We have the trail map, if anybody wants to see it in the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
It's there.
that would, yeah, actually.
Do you want to flip over to
Yeah,
that?
I know it was shown before, but
Yep.
right with the dashed lines.
Yep, keep going down.
It'll be number mitigation item
Right,
3.
Three.
yep.
Go to the trail map.
There you go. That's the rugged trail that was approved in the concept plan, and what we're talking about is making something off of this, wherever it finally gets laid out. These were not, and this is a concept plan, so we're not certain that this is the exact right area. This might need to move up, but we're trying to figure out a way to connect this up there as well.
That's why we'll have the site walk. We'll get out there and find a spot for it.
Then the point 4 of the mitigation plan was that there would be a sidewalk along the St. Andrews frontage of the corner, which is not on site, would be way over here. This is past Guardian Self-Storage, and that would have a pedestrian exclusive phase to cross St. Andrews, et cetera, but this will not be as part of this phase. We just agree it seems logical that you would want to have that sidewalk go in when this area is under development itself. The fifth statement, the fifth mitigation measure was that it was anticipated that the National Park Service and/or the town together would be creating a shuttle that would go from a train station to the historic sites. So we don't think that this is necessarily enough to mandate that yet, and also we can't require the National Park Service to create a shuttle, nor the town, because that was under discussion at the time. But in essence, we're going to make certain that the applicant looks at the portico height so that if buses come through, tour buses, that they'll be able to traverse the site, look at all the turning radiuses, et cetera, because we anticipate that there will be at point, sometimes, just like we have the tour buses now that go to the CIA, they may be stopping over here as well. I'm sure the hotel will be happy to have the tour bus service stop over there and let them spend the night or many nights.
Bill Hoy, I followed up with him on that. The portico share is at 13 feet, can handle shuttle service, no problem, would have to go up to 14 to handle a bus. So,
I assume that they could park outside, just outside the portico share to have people exit.
Can you flip back? The way I see that working, site plan. We're really making you earn your, yeah, that's fine, right there. So the bus, could come in here and park here.
Mhm.
Okay.
The
Right
shuttles
outside, right?
can swing around, and the idea both times is to come in, you're not gonna swing around here. You'll go out that way. So real simple, in, out, bus will come in, park and then out.
It was also discussed that if you have a bus parking, they usually take up so many spaces. They'll park, alongside it and just take up some spaces. And in this case, they actually have a few more parking spaces than what they're required to, so that you could have a bus parked there if it wanted to and not affect the overall site. The point number 6, the southwest corner of the project site be maintained as open space. Buildings and parking located near the corner of Route 9 and West Dorsey Lane will be set back 250 feet, and significant landscaping of this location will preserve the character of Teller Hill. What we're basically talking about doing is maybe beefing up some of the landscaping that's proposed in that area, and I think that'll become more evident when we do the site walk. And we see what's going to be disturbed and what's not. Number 7, signage we provided welcoming people to the town of Hyde Park. the developer will work with the Hyde Park Chamber to provide signage welcoming residents and visitors to the town. This is really in reference to the Chamber of Commerce welcome sign up at the top of Teller Hill, and since this is not being disturbed, we pushed that over to a future phase. It's listed as current subphase as well, just because they may want to rethink relocating it at some point during the construction of this site. That'll be up to them, and if they do, we'll have to have a site plan amendment just for that section to change the sign. Number 8A, connections to the CI campus we provided at the project site's major entry road where a fully actuated traffic signal would stop all vehicular traffic, allowing pedestrians to safely cross Route 9. They proposed it in their plan. 8B, the applicant has agreed to form a formal pedestrian path leading from the mixed-use center to Teller Hill and the Town Center District's business properties to the north. This is the same thing that was mentioned in item 3 earlier about creating the internal trails, since DOT doesn't want a Route 9 sidewalk itself. So some of these, as we said, we couldn't figure out exact trigger measures or, when, like, oh, it's 30% developed, so we thought we'd allow the planning board in the future the flexibility to say it looks like it's ready to go, with the knowledge that the planning board is in the driver's seat in all of these cases because we will be lead agency. Number 9, intersection improvements will be made at the southeast corner of Route 9 and St. Andrews Road. Those include, as we've noted, a new landscaped bed as well as a right turn only lane so that you would be forced to turn right, unlike now where you can go up and then somehow try to sneak back in to go straight or north on Route 9. And the applicant had proposed at the last meeting a threshold of 100 trips per hour at this intersection as a trigger for construction of that mitigation. And I just added that DOT in their letter would have to agree with that, but no one on the board last time had any issues with that. So we're still okay?
Well, it's, I think the applicant explained that is like
What
a
triggers it?
classic
Yep.
trigger point anyway,
Right.
so.
So it triggers a major traffic study if you're going to have something like that.
Correct.
Number 10 from the finding statement, 58% of the overall acreage will remain as open space, including 120 acres in conservation easements. These would largely be in the easternmost section of the site, which is where you have DEC regulated, we believe, wetlands because they look to be interconnected. There's no specific trigger that we could figure out when this would be, but at some point you'll want it to happen. Then 11, in the finding statement about the series of steps undertaken to minimize impact to potential Blanding's turtle habitat. What we proposed is that they include the standard DEC Blanding's turtle notes, the mitigation measures that are standard on there about educating drivers, making sure that potholes are cleared quickly, et cetera. The reason why is because we're not sure yet what the DEC is going to say. We had a forward of an email sent to Mr. Boudreau from, I can't remember if it was Rebecca Christ or who now, I think it was Rebecca,
Yep.
of the DEC stating that they did not think there'd be a taking, but we don't have a formal response yet. So we wanted to just, if they don't believe there'll be a taking, because this is out of the area, the Blanding's turtle area, that likely habitat was back in the area that's going to be conserved. So, and because of also the loss of trees and the lack of real wetland areas in this portion of the site, we don't think it's probably that they're going to be nesting there, but they may be walking around it. So we're going to wait and see what the DEC does. It is possible, that's what's noted there, for an on-site monitor to, during construction to be evaluated. It's for future phases, to make sure that there's someone watching at all times. Number 12, season limitations on tree removal are cited to protect the Indiana bats, so the applicant agreed to limit clearing to October to March. We did note that they could phase the site plan to permit tree removal during that time quickly if they need to in order to further the construction process. Number 13, 2 connections to municipal water system are proposed to eliminate the dead ends of the existing system and form a complete loop, greatly improving the municipal water supply in the vicinity of the site. That's not required, we believe, for this subphase 1A. The town engineer, Mr. Sotero, is going to confirm that the design for this does not preclude future connections because we're looking, as you'll see a little bit later, to maybe run a water line, if it's possible, with ever any money, to extend that water line down south along Route 9 because other properties could use some better water, better quality water. Mr. Boudreau, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris, can you go to the site plan? We met with Dutchess County Water Wastewater Authority. Pete pitched that question to them, and so I followed up this morning, and what we came up with. Yeah, get to the new one. we extended the water line up here and here. Of course, it comes, from the tap down here, right there through here. What we're going to do is bring this extension up here, bring it back down to the fire hydrant, and extend this main up to here, and then put a T tap there. And if in the event that the district is expanded, they could tie it into here.
Then go down Dorsey and south along 9.
Yes, yes.
Great.
Yep.
And thanks, that's a great partnership, or great partnering with DCWWA and Mr. Sotero. Thanks for letting us know that.
I do just want to ask a question that Ms. Moss raised after the meeting, which was the planning board will need some idea moving forward about how you're going to separately meter each of these lots as they get developed. Are you going to have one big meter pit that a HOA then pays, or are you going to separately meter them because there's no public roads?
Yeah, great question. We talked to Dutch County Water Wastewater Authority about that exact thing, and what we're leaning towards is having each property individually metered and have them take over the ownership and maintenance of the line.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very clean. We wouldn't have to have a master meter right up in the front. And they'll have each lot that comes on would be have service by them.
So you'd grant them an easement to run their water lines through
Blanket
the property.
easement.
Okay.
Mr. Boudreaux, do they care if it's private or not?
The roads.
Who?
Yeah, the
I
DCWWA.
asked them that. They don't.
Oh, okay,
Right. As long as they have a blanket easement to
Right.
get to where they need to get to maintain
okay,
their lines.
that makes sense.
And each individual user, including the residential, will have their own meter.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It's a huge development at
Yeah.
full build out.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be very difficult to have one master meter and try to
Yeah, no.
allocate that. Nightmare.
Right. Well, you still have to have the meter
Yeah.
yes.
on everything.
Right. That's true anyway.
And
So.
Tom is reading the meter.
Thank you. Okay, to continue, the 14th item, a water main stub will be installed near West Dorsey Lane to allow the town to extend the water main. That was what we just discussed as well. And you can see where they're going to be providing, where they're going to be running the line to, and there will be an easement provided across that, or adjacent to the emergency access road off Dorsey, so to allow the town to construct whatever it would need to construct in through there. Number 15 is a multiple part. There's 3. It's traffic mitigation measures. First is that the access proposed at the CIA driveway will be designed to provide separate southbound left turn and a separate northbound right turn. They're proposing all this. 2 is a possible pedestrian-only phase and crosswalk at the intersection of Route 9 and St. Andrews Road. That's referred to earlier, but again, that's for future development phase. 15C is a pedestrian crosswalk and a pedestrian phase we provided to facilitate any pedestrian activity between the CIA and the proposed development. The applicant's proposing this. And 15D, intersection improvements will be made to the southeast corner of Route 9 and St. Andrews Road. Baker Gagne, the prior owners, will provide a landscaped island to force a right turn from right turn only lane on Route 9 to St. Andrews Road. Again, this is a repeat. They're proposing that there be 100 trips per hour at that intersection to trigger that kind of mitigation, and DOT must weigh in to agree. 16, because of the sensitivity of certain surrounding receptors, noise-generating construction activities on the St. Andrews site will be limited to the hours of 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. during weekdays and 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays. There shall be no noise-generating construction activities on Sundays. And I'm just going to read the next one real quickly as well. Additional mitigation measures are discussed regarding the nearby bed and breakfast, and a, quote, written noise mitigation plan must be submitted to the planning board, close quote, incorporating such during site plan review. These are related, so the applicants are going to propose and provide to us a noise mitigation plan. We went over some of the elements that might be included, like such as temporary noise dampening fencing, delaying the starting time for certain types of work, like if there's any rock, they're having to, I hope not blast, that would be a separate protocol. But if they're going to be doing a lot of rock removal, then that may be something that wouldn't start till 10. So they're going to be coming back to us with a plan so that we can evaluate it.
Some of those things could include limiting the time of blasting if we do have to blast. We're working with Vassar, and they blast at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., so that kind of thing. It's not early or late. And then the other thing we talked about is the location of the crusher. We got to deal with the rock.
Because that makes a loud sound. Moving on, and again, they'll be proposing this to us. We'll have a chance to further review this. Baker Gagne will grant a conservation easement to a qualified land trust and the town over the open space to the east of the residential development, and that will make a $25,000 contribution to the land trust as an endowment for inspection and management of expenses. This clearly seems like it'd be further away once we have the actual open space area under easement, but we are acknowledging now that land trusts may have increased their requirements for the contribution from $25,000 since 2007. It's been 10 years. That will be something to discuss in the future. Number 19, the site trails will tie into the townwide trail system. Approximately 10 miles of on-site trails were part of the approved concept plan. So the trail system, as it's going to be connected, ultimately would wind up going to Route 9, and if the other Bellefield site ever, where we had the club at Hyde Park, if that ever developed, the plan was to have a trail there that would then connect to the farm lane trails so that you could walk both to the FDR Presidential Library and home, as well as to Valkill. And if you're feeling really industrious, take the trail all the way up to Top Cottage that exists there too. So this is still incorporated, but it's not going to be something that's tied into this plan right now because we're looking at a lower right corner, but it will have its section of the trail developed. Number 20, Baker Gagne will not lease the commercial space in the northwest corner to convenience retail, such as drugstores, drive-through uses, et cetera, which might be better suited at other locations. This is not proposed at this time. This is when you'll be evaluating this when they're going to be proposing development at the corner, the northwest corner of the site. Number 21, the demand for police department services will be supplemented by an on-site security system. Originally, Baker Gagne had thought about having private security, like a private rent-a-cop or whatever, on the site. We don't believe that the hotel itself alone will mandate that, but we also note that they'll probably have security because all hotels have some sort of security system, in-house detective, something. That's how they operate. 22, the community building located within the mixed-use area will comprise a privately run library space, which will provide a book service and internet access. We all think that's suitable for future, particularly when there's residential development proposed. Number 23, 23 of the proposed 96 townhomes will be sold at affordable housing prices. This is clearly not a portion of this proposal. Number 24, they're listing various details on the interlocking HOAs, the master association, what maintenance responsibilities will be included on each. Ms. Van Tile can tell you that this is one little headache she has ahead coming up to start on, but that will be part of this phase because we're going to start having some HOAs as of this point. Number 25, the plan calls for the reuse of existing displaced stone walls. The developer will use every effort to preserve the on-site stone material where possible and using this material to construct new walls. And actually, Mr. Boudreau confirmed they're going to be using some on-site to construct the stone walls that are proposed.
Oh, good.
I could show that to you.
Uh-oh. Chris, back to the site plan.
It's probably just the site plan, it's not the grading plan, but there's, there you go. There's an existing wall right here. We're going to tie this fieldstone wall here that's running up on the north side right into it, so we'll blend it in. So we're looking for those opportunities to do that.
Ms. Dexter and I walked the site
There's
10 years ago.
at least, yeah.
And several times, but there are a lot of walls that you can see used to be dry stacked, dry laid.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're now what you would call in the stone wall world rubble. They're not in bad, they
the
would need to be
stones are still
rebuilt, but
good.
the stones are still good. The product could still be utilized. So thank you for starting this now.
Yep.
Number 26, the proposed mixed-use center will include a post office facility on site to service the project residents. We don't think this is required for subphase 1A, and I don't really know how this was partly me who got this in here way back when, but I don't think that we explored it enough because the post office won't deliver mail on private roads. I'm not sure they would locate a post office in the middle of a private development, so this may have to be revisited. But in the meantime, as I pointed out, we'll need to work on how, I assume the hotel will receive physical mail or snail mail, as it's called. So we need to figure out how that would happen. And I don't think at a site this size, you want to have just one big, huge bank of small mailboxes in the front for everybody to try to go
Michael,
to. Yeah,
Are you sure they won't go into private?
that's what we've been told more recently.
Because I take care of sites that have private roads,
Mhm.
and post office goes through and delivers mail.
Okay.
So I don't see
Yeah, it's
that.
just something to visit. Maybe talk to the postmaster, mistress?
Sites or all the sites?
Both.
Okay.
I think they do, Michael. They deliver to Williams.
They do, I was gonna say, I know they deliver sometimes, but we were told that for new developments, it's more like that more or less grandfathered in on the old system. So, yeah, so at any rate, it's just something to explore, to find out.
Right.
Then number 27 was giving details on the specifics of the Filter Innovations, Inc. vapor absorber and other elements of the odor control system for the wastewater treatment plant. And also, quote, minimum grade of operator of the wastewater treatment plant will be Roman numeral 3-A, whatever that means. And the potential for noise on site will be mitigated by insulating the entire structure of the facility. The applicants are proposing not their major, big central wastewater treatment plant, but a smaller one just to serve this site. And in our discussions, we asked the applicants to provide information on the odor control from this particular system, frequency of pumping, things like that, just to have a better idea about it. And the applicant has also agreed to provide a narrative in layman's terms explaining the odor control methods, because when I was reading this section and putting it in, I couldn't really follow much of it. I'm not an engineer, so.
Okay, yep.
Then last, the last mitigation that I could discover measure was that, again, it referenced the 250-foot buffer that's off West Dorsey, and the applicants have complied. There's no structure within that area whatsoever. So does anybody have any questions or disagreements with our suggested path forward?
Where's the snow gonna go? Big area.
You'll need to show area for snow storage or make a note on the map ultimately that it'll be carted off-site. Not mitigation, but a good point to bring up. And by the way, it's the seat. It just compelled you to
Yes.
say that because
Yes.
Mr. Groninger would always say, where is the snow going to be stored? It's required in the code to show that.
It goes with that chair, yes.
And since Mr. Groninger, I brought up his name,
Snow is septic.
if you think you're going to have a generator, you should show that on somewhere here because that is a requirement. It's a structure under our code and TAB will require a site plan amendment. If they want to have one, they may not, or maybe it'll be inside. Just,
Good point.
Okay.
yes, that was Mr. Groninger's, because he deals with fire and electric often, it was one of his main suggestions. So anybody else have any comments on?
Just that this is just a big wow. This is a nice summary of all of those issues that we talked about all those many years ago. Makes my head spin.
And we have a path forward.
Yes.
So I want to thank the applicants for working with us as well to come up. Again, the hotel doesn't trigger all these things, but we wanted to get at least some measure of going forward to ensure that as we're doing our appropriate hard look as lead agency, or as soon-to-be lead agency, we haven't quite declared yet.
Oh, you're lead agency, no one objected.
Okay, good. Since we're lead agency
You're lead
by default, then I want to make sure that we in the record that we've done our hard look, and I think this is what does this. And I should get a motion to adopt this, correct? So it's part of our official kind of record and proceedings?
Yeah, we can adopt it as reviewed by the planning board on today's date, so that
Okay.
we can incorporate it into our secret record.
Make it a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what else did you want to discuss tonight?
Wanted to give the board an update. We met with, as I said, DOH this afternoon. Can you go to the site plan? There it is. And we submitted the package treatment plant, which is shown here, and the drain fields, disposal fields are here. We submitted that to DEC 8 weeks ago with the hope to have it all wrapped up by the end of the year.
This, by the way, for all of us would be for the speedies permit. The DEC, remember, also has to give a permit for wastewater.
Right, so the way the process goes is we submit, and the first thing they asked us for was a flow confirmation letter that we get from DOH. So we went to DOH, gave them the flow, and they sat on it. Well, they didn't really sit on it, but there's apparently a policy issue as to who would take the regulatory authority over this package treatment plant. So after 4 or 5 weeks or so, DEC and DOH got together and decided that DOH would take the regulatory authority over. What that means is they don't have as much experience with the BioClear unit and wouldn't necessarily give us credit for secondary treatment. And so that means these drain fields here would essentially have to double in size. And if you look here, I mean, where are we going to go? So we, Tom asked me to immediately look at alternatives, and why don't you go to the next one? Keep going down to the end. Yeah. So the alternative we came up, which I wanted to discuss at a high level, because this is where we're at. We're going to have to make a decision with this. There are ways to make that BioClear thing work. But what this shows is the location of the larger wastewater treatment plant further north on 9. This is our northern drive that we're currently getting approved, working with DOC, getting that approved. The idea would be this would be the access to the plant, and it would be phased. The first phase would be for the hotel, 25,000 gallons of flow. And then as we develop, then we would go to phase 2, 3, and 4 with a total flow over 300,000 gallons. So the idea is that this is being sited off the 9 instead of up off of St. Andrews. This is the lowest. Marici Kill is right here. This enables us to gravity flow half the site. Instead of having 5, 6 pump stations, we could have 1. Very efficient, very clean. And I went out there and I walked this thing, and this location here is at about a 96, and there's a natural berm here that's at 112. So you can see it with trees on top. So there's a beautiful buffer here, and there are specimen trees here. I noted one here that we would say big sycamores. And the idea for the users in Bellefield is when they turn down here and go north, they're not looking right into this. Of course, this is fenced, so I pulled the drive further east, so you know the line of sight's not going in. You have to make the turn and then the left to get in. So grade-wise, it fits in there nice. There's buffer requirements off of this thing that the DOH will have. The 150 off of here is right here, so all the building structures are outside of that. Everything that's buried is in the 150. So there's no structures in there. The direct discharge would be to the Marici Kill, which is right here, which would be pumped.
And as a reminder, the prior concept plan, there was a sort of conceptual approval from DEC to allow discharge into the Marici Kill. It was at a higher point, that's all.
Yeah.
So I assume it's not necessarily itself valid, but I don't think nothing's changed, in other words, during the interim, so I think that shouldn't be hard to get.
Right, so we would get the Speedy's permit on the flow that we need for this phase, and they'll tell us what level to treat to, which we're already expecting the highest quality.
So this would be in lieu of the SDS?
Yes.
And so you'd be forming a transportation corporation because it's on a different parcel?
Well, that's a very good
I
question.
just discussed this with him earlier.
We're meeting internally, Jennifer and Al Capoli. Natoli. I can only hear one ear, so I don't always get it right. So when we have that, we'll figure it out. But the idea is initially not to have a transportation corp, so that we're not delayed, but we'll see.
Right, well, I think once you have dual ownership or two separate ownerships, you do have to do that.
Cross the property
And
line.
so, one thing I know the town's gonna be concerned about is making sure that there's an agreement with DCWWA at the outset to take it over should it fail.
Yeah, so one of the technical issues that came up that we're going to have the lawyers sort out is the notion of creating a single lot from the hotel parcel running all the way down to the permanent location. As you start to cross properties, it becomes a technical issue for the DOH. As Larry had mentioned, we're going to engage an expert in this, a guy named Al Natoli, who should be a somewhat familiar name, to supplement Jennifer's work on land use planning and come up with a solution. In many respects, this is it's a bit of a curveball, but I think it's probably much more efficient long term, rather than have to get duplicate speedies permits, have multiple locations where wastewater is being treated. We can do this once, put everything in place, and go forward. So we have some some technical work to do on our side, but we'll be back with a lot more detail on what this looks like.
So to some, what they may be proposing is to have a single lot that would run from here all the way to the hotel. That way, no transportation corporation is required, because it's not, yeah, it's all part of one lot. That's what I believe you're proposing.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, they would come back in for a re-subdivision of that lot once we had more development. And I didn't realize it took so long to form a transportation corporation. We always just see that as a condition. Form the T Corp. It's going to take a year, then I don't want that to limit construction on this. So we want to work with you, I think, to figure out what's the easiest way to move forward on this. And that was a curveball. And if you remember, Mr. Mulroy, that's what I said from the very beginning. It's the outside agencies that we can't control. And I've never heard of this DOH saying that why you don't get credit for BioClear, but then again, they're not familiar with it. DEC sees this on a statewide basis, but even we see it all the time. And so, at any rate, I'm sorry this happened, but we're going to work to adjust to make sure that we go forward.
So we do have a public hearing set for
Yep.
the next meeting, and I'm gonna have to recommend that it be continued until at least we work out whether this is gonna be part of it and also the phasing. So we can continue working through those issues, but
Absolutely.
it is a significant change.
It's big. It's. They know that too, because I think it affects the bottom line maybe on that. It's got to. Yeah. You're talking about.
1,500 linear feet.
I was just going to say, you're talking about a lot longer way to go. But you're right, if you can use gravity instead of having to relocate this, having all the pump stations, that makes a lot of sense to me. It means less breakdown to the system over time, et cetera, so.
It'll make the next phase easier to develop.
Yes.
That's certainly true.
Subsequent phases. yeah.
Anything else from you guys? And by the way, thank you, Larry, for,
Yeah.
we had the phone call, we discussed that. He said, I want to give you a heads up, you can tell the planning board, and I'm like, no, you can tell them tonight, so.
Yeah, so in 2 weeks, I want to present the site plan. And I'm sure you're going to want to get out there. We can schedule the same walk on the south end with this as well.
After you've walked, whenever you're ready, just let me know and we'll work out sometime. Just to know, generally, since it's getting dark earlier, it's probably better on the weekends because so many of our board members work.
Okay.
Or we could do it at 2 different times. I know Ann and I went to a site walk that we thought was going to be quick, and we wound up
Watching the sunset.
Yeah.
And the bats come out.
and the bats come out, et cetera. So, because it happens fast all of a sudden. So, particularly when you're really wandering a site. So, I'd rather not. I think I stepped in poison ivy at the end. So, I was booted up. But at any rate, I'd rather avoid things like that to happen. So, any comments from the consultants, Liz? I saw you taking copious notes. Good.
I took a lot of notes, but I haven't been involved in the technical meetings, so.
Right.
But
But
he
would-
really knows all the background.
Would you generally agree that the mitigation, the way we've proposed structuring the future
Oh.
stuff, sounds good?
It's
I
beautiful.
love this table. This is great.
Beautiful.
Very handy.
Thank you. I just wanted on the record that our consultant agrees. Ms. Polidoro, any other comments from you?
The board could consider a motion to declare lead agency formally tonight, if you so choose.
Who wants to make that motion?
I think we should, yes.
Ms. Dexter offers the
I'd like to
motion.
make a motion that we are lead agent on
I'll
this
second
project.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Anything else? That's what I thought. Ms. Polidoro has to be excused for another meeting. So let me start to my left. Mr. Murphy, any additional comments?
Just that I'm very happy with the chart, and how rapidly things are moving along. Makes me very happy.
Thank you.
I remember the old Pierre Gandhi days, where things just went on and on forever.
Yeah.
I
Well,
aged a lot.
One thing that helps is the applicants are interested in doing this, and, we had a nice back and forth dialogue, for that matter. We were actually laughing half of the time, so that's a good sign. Ms. Weiser?
I have no comments, but thank you very much for working so hard for us.
And again, thank you for spending all that time. I do want to point out, I got there late, but I think it was fully a 3.5-hour meeting.
Wow.
Yeah, well, there was a lot to discuss. So, Mr. Pickett, any additional comments?
Just ditto to my left, and really look forward to helping all we can.
Thank you.
Ms. Dexter?
I'm looking forward to a site walk and moving this even further along.
Great. Mr. Oliver?
I'm extremely impressed with the progress and speed of it, and looking forward to the improvements at Hyde Park. Thank you.
And Ms. DiNapoli?
Please convey my warmest regards to Bill. I'm sorry I missed him. I think you realize we're all very pleased with the latest renditions, and that's the end of my comments, except for I look forward to that walk, too.
So you'll have a new submission before the public hearing, I take it? Site plan-wise?
I'm sorry,
No?
I didn't hear.
So will you have a new submission before the public hearing?
Well, that means I have to submit this week.
No.
Oh, the new one, yes, I
Yes,
will.
and unfortunately, the chairman gets to make some of these decisions, yay. If you're in the pipeline, like you have been for some of us for 12 years, we're kind of familiar with the project, so if you could get it to us like maybe a week beforehand, that's all.
Okay.
Because that'll give us, our agenda meetings are on the Thursday before the meetings, so if we could get it the day before, we can actually look at it at the agenda if we need to, meeting if we haven't had time to beforehand.
Okay.
And if you can't, just let us know.
No, we will. I mean, I expect, because we're going to adjourn it, push it out 2 weeks, so it's 4 weeks from tonight, so we'll definitely have something to
Okey-doke.
in 2 weeks.
Any other comments at all? Then thank you. We'll see you shortly.
Thank you very much.
And I look forward to, good luck with working this portion of it out.
Yeah, so
It is a curveball, but you know what? You can still swing at them and hit them sometimes. There you go. Okay. You have the talent here, that's for sure. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a workshop for Creek Park Mobile Home Park. Is anyone here from the, aha, new people for me. Come on up. Thanks for your patience and waiting. We apologize it takes so long, but this is a big project for us, and we want to give it a lot of attention.
I'm a little concerned I don't have any of this information.
That's quite all right. Can you turn the microphone closer to you? Yeah.
Sorry, we're a little old school.
Don't worry.
We like old school, that's all right.
Yep. So the applicants here are seeking a site plan amendment. This is a non-conforming use in the district, but it's grandfathered, to use the term loosely. And in addition, what's been happening over time since the Loises bought the site, apparently, is this, for Ms. Moss, is they've been attempting to kind of neaten up the site, make it look better, improve it, and they've relocated some buildings, making them more, or structures, making them more consistent, replacing a few, I think there are 4, and then they'd also like to add one where none was ever before. And Ms. Moss and I did go back through the historical analysis through parcel access, and we've never seen anything there, so we assume it's always been kind of empty. And again, Ms. Moss wanted me to point out and underscore that they do have a permit for 22, that they've had less than 22. And if it seems confusing, if you go through and look at the numbers for the little structures, they skip sequencing. It doesn't matter. The total is 22. That's what's important through here. And by the way, I did drive by the site, and everybody's done a lot of little individual landscaping and stuff. It looks nice. It's funny because I drove by it for 23 and a half years and never noticed it. it's not something that you just leaps out at you because of the way it's hidden in with other structures around it,
There's
so.
no sign.
There's no sign either
There's
that
no
says
sign.
anything on it,
That-
so. That noted, could you both please state your names in the microphone for the record?
I'm John Lewis.
Joe Jordan from Powell's office.
Thank you. So I've been sort of describing what you'd like to do. Let me open it up to you guys to supplement that.
What's that?
I'm going to open the microphone up for you to describe what you want to do to the project as well, unless you think that I summed it up.
Mr. Chairman, I think that was a, there's not much I can add to that.
Okay, thank you.
Only thing I might add is that, as you point out, that the site, there's never been a home there.
Mhm.
When we originally started this project, years ago when we purchased it, there was no off-street parking, so our desire had been to get better space and become more in conformance.
Mhm.
So it's been a long process, but we're starting to see some of the fruits of the.
Yes, so they've added little drive-ins and little, I don't want to say patios, but areas to walk, congregate, et cetera. So they've been, Ms. Moss is the one who says that they've been making sincere efforts to clean up the place and make it look better. You know that's the truth, because she can be very tough at times.
She doesn't use those words often.
No, she doesn't. Then let me start over. Any comments? Ms. Axelson, you submitted a memo for us?
Yeah, we did. We had a number of questions. Some of them have to do with the mobile home size table, just to give some more clarity. I know we weren't really clear on where the private water supply well is.
It's municipal.
They're on
It is
municipal water. They're part of the Harvard Hills District.
Okay. Okay. And then it was, trying to nail down some of the scheduled bulk regulations issues and adding, notation about variances and that kind of thing. So most of them are technical comments. Nothing major.
You got a copy of this?
I have a copy of Pete's correspondence that was provided.
This would be from Pete and Ms.
This is from
Axelson.
Pete.
Yes.
This is from Pete.
So
From
just,
October 12th.
all you'll need to do is just, so the way we work here in Hyde Park is these are given out to you so that you can respond item by item by item. If you'll just submit a response back, that makes it very easy because we can check, 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 check. If you have any questions about any of them, you can contact Mr. Sotero or Ms. Axelson or me at the planning board office.
And there is one more thing. I know that Tad had asked about the possibility of, is there any way to plant any trees where some of the homes are very close to the rear line near an existing neighborhood? So that's just something to think about.
Sure.
Okay.
Certainly look into that. Yeah, we do understand the variance would be required. We also have put a package
Microphone?
together. Oh, sorry. We do also understand that the variance is required. Ostensibly, the board would refer us to the ZBA for the variance, or?
You have to, I think Tad is rejecting your offer, so you're automatically over to the ZBA now.
Okay.
The question for us is, so the issue here, again, to look at the site, this is, Creek Road runs
That way.
No, yeah, that way.
That's
that
Creek
way.
Road, yes.
And Route 9G is also by this,
Ways.
That's the.
somewhere along the way. But at any rate, this has to be 100 and something feet from a town road, and it's not, which is why it needs the variance, because Creek Road is a town road.
Oh.
Something also of interest is that Creek Road, if you're heading south on 9G and you swing left in front of Joseph's Steakhouse, then you'll see that's Creek Road, but if you take that sharp turn, that's also Creek Road.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
switchback there.
Yeah, it's,
Is that considered Creek Road as well?
yes, it's a town road, Creek Road. I see people nodding in the back, but yeah, I never knew that either, but it is. So,
It's unnamed.
yeah, well, Hyde Park, we have one road, my favorite is Yates, that actually goes a certain distance, then takes a hard right and stays Yates.
Yeah, there's no structures on that part, so there's no
There's no-
911.
There's no 911 number on it because it's just, they're empty, but that's what they'll need the variance for. So as part of this, the ZBA will be asking whether, what our recommendation is to grant the variance. So I need something from you guys to let me know whether it should be a positive or negative at some point. Think about it, think about it. Or neutral, take no position, whatever you'd like me to do. I'll be happy to write it.
I personally don't see any reason why we wouldn't offer support for that.
Thank you, Ms. Dexter. I was looking for some direction. Thank you, I was looking for some direction.
So I'd make a motion that we would allow you to write
So
something.
I'll write the
affirmative.
letter and you'll see it in 2 weeks beforehand, and I'll just get a motion to allow me to send it over to them.
Gotcha.
Okay? Perfect.
And there's just one more thing I wanted to say, kind
Just
of
one.
to the applicant, I think it's really important right now to get things really nailed down on the plan, so the next time around, when you have to go through this, you'll have a really clear record.
Right.
And that's why all the detailed comments. That's all.
They hope they won't be having to come back through this again, I'm guessing, because
They're
they'll be
cleaning it all
now,
up now.
and they'll be now at the maximum that they're allowed by their permit. So, but it's still a good idea.
Replace.
Not just that, it's also a good idea just to make it clear. If they go to sell it, then it's going to make it a lot more valuable for you to sell it to somebody who knows, oh, I've got a clear plan, I can do what I want to with it. So any other comments? Let me start from my right. Ms. DiNapoli, any comments?
One of them was the issue of the location of the septic system.
Yeah, there's a tile field located,
See, it's to the north of lot.
We have a walk-around microphone if you want to grab
If
that.
it doesn't destroy the,
Right here is the location, and John, you can speak to how each of these individual units are hooked up to separate tanks.
oh, I can see it now right there, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
This unit feed the septic system here, and each of the other units are collective units.
Yeah, there are,
So then there's no problem with this newer one being hooked up?
you would tie right into an existing.
Because that was one of the things that I know we had.
Sized originally most of the septics are sized.
it was put in for your maximum number.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was some dialogue going back and forth between Ms. Polidoro, email, and Ms. Moss, and basically that's what she said, is they need to show it, and we can refer it over to DOH as a courtesy, but this is regulated really by the permit.
Okay.
So, and you're permitted already with that amount, so thank you. Anything else? So when you go to respond, for example, to her points, like point 5, show location of the private water supply well, that the response would be on Harvard Hills Municipal System. It'll be pretty easy as you go along, I promise. Any other comments? Ms. Napoli?
Oh, no,
Was
that was it.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Mr. Oliver?
Thank you for making the effort to clean up the site and make it a better site for Hyde Park. Thank you.
Thanks.
I
Ms.
would
Dexter?
just echo that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pickett?
No comment.
I have no
Ms.
comment.
Weiser? Mr. Murphy?
You're planning on all these units being new, or?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Okay. Echo, thanks for cleaning the site up. I went through there the other day, and it's very nice.
We're trying.
So I read the section on these kinds of developments because it's our first. I've been up here 12 years. It's my
Yeah.
first one to do.
Yep.
And I didn't know all the requirements. And so I was like, why do they have to get a variance? Well, they have to be set so far back. So the other thing that was of interest is when they're replaced, they can't be replaced with models older than 10 years. Every time one's replaced, in other words, if it's like 50 years old, if you're going to replace it, it would have to be at least a 10-year-old model. It can't be another like 30-year-old model or something. That's all required in the code, and TAD reviews that. The other thing, just to remind the board, and this is something that I discussed with Mr. Poval and I think your father. Yes. Yep. The other Mr. Lois, one of many Mr. Loises. And that would be that this is site plan, and so all the site plan elements come into play, including sidewalks, landscaping, et cetera. The issue here is that this is already a developed site, and having driven through it, I don't think you want a sidewalk, to be honest with you. That's my opinion. And the landscaping is really handled by the individual owners. I think this would be analogous to like a renter who leases the space but doesn't own it, if I'm correct. It's a single lot, right? They don't own the land.
They don't pay tax. Each individual owner is not paying taxes.
So they would just pay, that's what I thought. So in this case, it's already pretty landscaped. I think the only comment that Tad had was whether there might be a location for some trees as landscaping, particularly right along here with these neighbors. That's really about it. So I just want all of you to think about that, because we'll be putting in waivers of those sections that are required by site plan, because most of them don't apply because the site plan is usually meant for commercial rather than this. Although this is quasi-commercial, I guess, because you're renting it out. But at any rate, And I myself do not see any reason why you couldn't have that there. This is going to be a double wide, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. There being no other comments, we are prepared to take some action tonight. We've written a resolution to classify the action under seeker and refer it to Dutchess County Department of Planning because it's close enough to 9G that it has to be referred to them. And I'm also going to refer it to the Department of Health just as a courtesy. So who has this resolution? Mr. Pickett does.
I do. Resolution classifying the action under SECRA, referring the application to Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, and referring to Dutchess County Department of Health. Creek Park Mobile Home Park, October 18, 2017, resolution number 2017-41. Whereas 11 times. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby classifies the project, or 1, classifies the project as a type 2 action, 2, refers the project to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development pursuant to section 239-M of the General Municipal Law, and 3, refers the project to the Dutchess County Department of Health for review and recommendation regarding the adequacy of the existing septic disposal system. Second.
Thank you, Chan. All in favor?
Aye.
So we could set a public hearing for a month, if you'd like, which gives county planning time to respond. I will point out that this is not a seeker circulation because a type 2 action means there is no seeker. It's already determined there won't be any impacts.
Right.
So would you guys like to set a public hearing?
Yes. Sure.
And that would be for the
15th?
December 15th, I think?
November 15th.
I mean, November.
Right? Are we in October? We're still in October.
We're in October.
Holidays got to you.
It's a variety of reasons that it's all gotten to me, sorry. So, did we get a motion to set it for November 15th?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll see in a month. You'll have a month in which time to respond to those, but if you want to get them in earlier, get them in earlier. If you have any questions, just call Pete. Any other questions? It was nice meeting your dad. I know your brother quite well.
Which one?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dale.
Dale.
Dale, yeah. I know Robert and Sarah very well, and I'm supporting Robin.
Did I what?
Anyway, you would ask Dale about me, he'll know. Nice to meet you. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we already did a couple of the site plan waivers. I think we have what's left.
More Robin and Patricia.
Is
I'm ready to
Robin
go.
and Patricia Moore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diane.
Probably
Resolution 2017-43,
means they're not using it.
whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Robin Moore for a 3-season room in the rear of a single-family home requiring a building permit. And whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waive site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the Building Department October 3rd, 2017, and per the request to the Planning Board dated October the 9th.
Second.
So a little bit of discussion here. This is visible from the river.
Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
So what I'd like to point out, however, is that it's going to basically replace a deck on stilts and be much more attractive than what's there right
Nicer
now.
view from the river.
So it's going to be a nicer view from the river. And honestly, you'd have to kind of be not either in the center or toward the west side to really see it nicely, because it's got some obstruction. But you can see it, but I think it's going to be a big improvement, actually. So,
Sounds good.
all in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. And the last site plan waiver is for Alicia and Joseph Molloy at 33 South Drive. And they're seeking site plan waiver for some replacements of windows and siding to their home that they just purchased. And this is not visible from the river or from either of the historic sites. Who has this one?
Resolution 2017-45, whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Joseph and Alicia Molloy on October 12, 2017, for property located at 33 South Drive in the town of Hyde Park. And whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Joseph and Alicia MOLLOY regarding the specific request as submitted October 16th and in the building permit application of the same date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Is this your nephew back there? Oh, nice to meet you.
I didn't know they were watching.
Yes. So this is, Councilman Ray sold his house to his nephew. So, and he'll be there, yeah, niece and nephew, I should say. So they'll be there, he'll be there while they're doing some renovation.
Nat would be glad I did that. He wanted to change a few things.
Well, it's also nice to have young people in Hyde Park buying homes. So we're really happy to see you here. So welcome. Hope everything works out beautifully for you. And good luck with the building department. This is one more step along the way, I know. Any other business from the board tonight? There being no more, none, may I get a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Video Ventures, for televising. Did I sign?